Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. Someone sent me some links to this saying, hey, are you aware that Ronnie Coleman's been pimping a fat burning cream? And so I checked it out. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And apparently he's been called out in the past for this. Actually, Bradley Martin, of all people, called him out for this at one time, but it looks like he's still pimping it. I'm going to flip in here a little thing on his Instagram, but if you look every few months, he's got a new Instagram ad up for it. You've noticed it's now carried in the UK, and he's pimping this product. And what's interesting is that his little pitch he throws in there, I'm old enough and have been in the iron game long enough to know who he stole that pitch from. That's not even his. Back in the day, Lee Haney, who was Mr. Olympia shortly after Arnold and all of that, used to put out a bunch of old workout videos on VHS, and I got a chance to see one of them actually online years ago. I tried to re-find a copy just to compare, or a transcript of what he said, and I couldn't find one. But I remember Lee Haney, and the reason it stood out is because it was so lame the way he would say, I've got these sublinguals, this is my secret, and he would wink. Is one of my secret weapons, and it's a secret, so shh, be quiet about it. And it was almost word for word like what Ronnie Coleman has in there a couple of times that he said that in these workout clips. His little spiel was almost identical to the one Ronnie Coleman's running for this cream, and Ronnie's pimping this cream, acting like he used it when he was Mr. Olympia, like it helped him get ripped abs or whatever, helped him burn fat in places. It's ridiculous, just like Lee Haney pretending that he used these sublingual drops to do anything. When everyone back in the day always said that all the trainers who work with Lee said he used tons of Boltanon. That was what he used, which is actually surprising because it's relatively mild anabolic. That was his favorite. That's what he used. Even though he wasn't that big on, he didn't use as much as a lot of other guys. He was very genetically gifted. And that was always Lee Haney's big concern. Now that I'm on the little spiel with Lee Haney, that was always a big concern that he had, and why he dropped out of bodybuilding is that he said it was about to turn into chemical warfare, and he didn't want anything to do with it at that point. That, yeah, I mean, people used drugs and it was the norm, but it looked like it was going in the direction that he felt was too extreme, and he thought he was scared of it. And he backed out. And then, sure enough, it did. Everyone started getting real big real fast. So you have that, and he kind of took that from him. And here's the thing, and this is the thing that people need to realize. This is a case of looking at how the mighty have fallen. Because I'm going to be honest, I've seen Ronnie Coleman train. One time I met him in person at a gym and saw him train. He is probably the hardest training person I've ever met in my life. He was ridiculously, mind-bogglingly strong. Like on a level that even most power lifters are going to turn and go, damn. Like the average top-level power lifter would feel slightly weak training in a gym with this guy. The sort of stuff he threw around for reps on various exercises that you see in person, that you see it's not fake weights. It's downright scary. And that came at a price because, you know, he used sloppy form and he beat his body up. That's the thing. People can say whatever they want. Well, what do you mean? He clearly knew what he was doing. He's Mr. Olympia. Yeah, with all those damaged discs and nerves in his back. Guy's in a wheelchair now. With confirmed nerve damage, disc damage, everything else diagnosed in his back from using piss poor technique. He was extremely genetically gifted in the size and strength department. He was mind-bogglingly strong and with a high work ethic. And you know what? We've actually found that people who have that crazy level of work ethic that he had is also genetic. It's inherent in you. That's not something you learn. You are either that driven or you aren't. And we've actually figured out when they've looked at athletes that is an actual genetic trait too. That's genetics. To have the sort of work ethic he had to just push past whatever pain or whatever was going on, that's actually a genetic trait. The average person doesn't have that. There's a reason certain people are born to be champions. They're born to be champions. So that's who he was. But it tore his body up. And to the point he was in a wheelchair, and you guys remember in an interview he was saying his biggest regret is that he didn't train even harder. I'm going to go out on a limb at having watched him train that had he trained any harder than he did, he would have been in a wheelchair 15 years sooner. Because I've seen him train, and I can tell you it's not humanly possible for a human being to train harder than what I witnessed. It's just not possible. So even then, that's that same motivation the guy has, saying, I wished I had trained even harder. That's my biggest regret. Goddamn, you crushed disc and damaged nerves in your back training so hard. Lifting weights that most people, for 10 and 12 reps, that most people will never touch for a max ever in their life. Even guys on steroids. So, that being said, look at where he's at now, though, and that's kind of the point. He is arguably the GOAT as far as what he did. He won the Mr. Olympia more than anyone else. He made more money while competing as a bodybuilder than any other bodybuilder in recorded history that I'm aware of. So he got a pile of trophies that's never been beat, pile of cash doing it that's never been beat in his competitive endeavor, and yet afterwards, to sustain any sort of lifestyle that he wants, because I'm sure his medical bills are high, and everything else, look at what he's having to do. He's having to pimp worthless garbage products, because anyone in their right mind knows such a product doesn't work. There's no such thing as something that's going to tone you or burn fat under your skin that you rub on your skin that you could buy legally that you wouldn't go to prison for selling. You know? So the insanity of it, he's having to pimp stuff like this to sustain that lifestyle because, you know, he's got 6 kids. Dude has 6 kids. He does have major medical issues. And people who say, well, I mean, this is medical issues. No, he had medical issues before. Do you guys remember in certain interviews, back when he was still competing, he was showing all his prescriptions? He's like, this one's for my liver. This keeps my liver healthy. And it was prescriptions from his doctor. This one's for my blood pressure. This other one's for my blood pressure. This one's for my cholesterol. He was on about 7 or 8 different prescription drugs just trying to keep himself from getting sick and dying, or having heart attacks and everything else. All right, he was sick the entire time due to the abuse he had to put his body through to be where he was. So you can be damn sure he's running up medical bills these days. When you're on that many drugs 15 years ago, 10 years ago, due to your competitive lifestyle, and then you have major injuries and are in a wheelchair most of the time, it's fair to say you got medical bills. So yeah, he's having to do stuff still to try to maintain his lifestyle. And people are like, well, he could do other things. What are these bodybuilders going to do? Well, people need to understand, just because he was great at what he did doesn't mean that he has the ability to teach others. He's not a particularly articulate person. Most of what he did wasn't because of knowledge, it was just through sheer tenacity. The guy came in and took basic exercises and pushed with extremely heavy weights as hard as he could and did it over and over and over and over and over. And probably used everything he could get his hands on. Because, I mean, you look at all the drugs he was having to be prescribed for his health. Take fantastic genetics. He trained his ass off on a level. You can't teach other people to train that way. People can't be taught to have that sort of ethic. They just can't. So what's he going to teach people? Didn't have a knowledge of technique or form because he beat his own body up, and you can watch and tell that he was injuries waiting to happen. So it's not like he's going to go teach people, and people say, well, you know, his police work. Well, he's injured now. He's got major back problems. He can't go be a police officer. You can't be a police officer now. Also, he had that other major arrest, and that's going to blackball him. He had that arrest after he stopped being a cop. He got arrested here in Texas, claimed to be a police officer when he was no longer a licensed peace officer in Texas, and got charged with felony impersonation of a police officer. Now, I don't know how all that finished up, but that's going to appear if he goes to apply for some police job. So it's not like he's going to do any of that. So he's kind of stuck back into making money, into doing this same garbage bullshit all these other bodybuilders have to do. And keep in mind, guys, this is the GOAT. This is the greatest of all time. To sustain his lifestyle, his manner of living, pay his medical bills, he's having to pimp crap like fat-burning creams that you rub on your abs. Just like Lee Haney was having to pimp sublingual drops that you put under your tongue that boost your growth hormone levels and testosterone levels. We know none of that stuff works. That's what these guys have to do. because the whole industry they're in is about pimping crap anyway, so he's got a big supplement line. And I'm sure he's doing well financially, but I can promise you his outgoing expenses are pretty high too. This is what these guys do afterwards, because that's what people need to remember. A lot of these pro bodybuilders don't develop any real skills. A lot of them don't develop any real skills that they can use to teach other people. They're not always qualified to be good trainers or coaches or anything else. Just because they were bodybuilding, oftentimes other people told them what to do. They provided the genetics, and they didn't provide the butt cheek to inject the drugs in. You'd be surprised how many of them didn't learn any actual useful skills in the years of doing that. That's just the reality of it. And so there you have it. The guy's pimping worthless products to keep making money, because what else is he going to do? That's ultimately what bodybuilding is at the end of the day, isn't it? Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.